Okay, we can begin. It's already a little late. Tonight's topic is about bitachon atzmi, self-confidence. What's interesting about this midah, this characteristic, is that if you look at the various sifrei musar, and there are quite a few sifrei musar, quite a few books on Jewish ethics and morals, you will not come across it. You will find many other midot of which we have spoken about, and by the way, tonight is number 26. Besides the introduction. So we have about another 10, which will take us till the end of the summer. So midat bitachon or bitachon atzmi, self-confidence, which is something that we are familiar with, we've heard about it. Psychologists speak about it. In the non-Jewish world, it's quite prominent. Somehow it is not discussed in depth, at least, in the Sifrei HaMusar. Sifrei HaMusar are valuable books because they offer us direction. They offer us advice on how to work on ourselves, how to refine our character. And this is a very important midah. One who does not have self-confidence is not going to get too far. So why isn't it that this midah is mentioned? Why isn't it that this midah appears on the list of midot, such as anger, diligence, happiness, right? The very important midot. This one is important as well. The truth of the matter is as follows. This midah, in reality, is ingrained in the human soul, in the neshama. The neshama is the one that pushes an individual to flourish and to achieve whatever it is intended to achieve in this world, in its lifetime, and to maximize its potential, as long as it is not silenced. There are factors in this world, there are all kinds of issues and incidents that unfortunately can silence or limit one's growth. It's just a fact. And sometimes people are to blame themselves, because the human being does have free will. He does have the koach haratzon to want certain things. But it is obvious that if people discourage him, if they put him in a jail, they limit him, then he's not going to flourish unless he has such an exceptional mazal, such a great mazal that he's somehow going to succeed to get out of this jail, out of these limitations. Otherwise, the surroundings, the upbringing, the friends, they all contribute. So the neshama does give us the desire, the interest to succeed. The neshama, the soul, which is divine, does have within it the love for Hashem, the love to do the right things. And therefore, the neshama does have this bitachon atzmi, or does give an individual a certain amount of confidence. That, yes, go ahead and try it, go ahead and do it. It almost acts actually as a GPS in many ways, because it takes us to where we need to be. It directs us to those who we need to marry. It directs us to the parnasah, to our livelihood. As long as there's nothing interfering, then we will get to that address. But unfortunately, there are times that people make terrible mistakes in their life, or others make the mistakes for them, and as a result of that, they don't succeed in maximizing their potential. Every human being has tremendous potential. It is a potential that even the non-Jewish world recognizes as untapped. Many, many times it goes untapped. Great talents, great abilities. And it's chaval, as we say in Hebrew. It's a shame if they're not developed. And that is why I like the saying that once upon a time someone said, nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. Did all of you hear that and understand that? Nobody can make you feel inferior unless you consent, unless you agree to it, unless you allow it to happen. But that's what happens. People do allow other people's criticism of themselves to shape their lives. But if you don't allow it, then you have no idea of the great potential you'll have. And the normal or natural bitachon atzmi, self-confidence, that would be there. That would exercise its own free will to prosper and to do whatever it is that it has to do in its lifetime. What are some of those limitations? some of those limitations that may be ingrained from birth as well, may be excessive shyness. We spoke about midat busha. It is very special that someone is a bit shy and does not have chutzpah. That is one of the signs of Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation, is by shanim rachmanim gomlei chasadim. They are shy, they are kind-hearted, right? They're generous, they are compassionate. But if you have an excessive amount of almost any midah, it could be to your detriment. It may not be such a good thing to be too shy. The same thing if somebody's too compassionate, too much of a rahman, he feels bad for everyone. People are going to take advantage of him. Or someone who's overly humble. Humbleness is one of the most beautiful midot in the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu has this midah, anava. But if you're too humble, you let people step on you, how much self-confidence are you going to have? The other way around is also true. Not only are certain weaknesses to one's detriment if they're excessive, but if one exercises or excels, I should say, in the good midot, in the good characteristics. For example, he's very diligent, he's not afraid, he's not an individual who worries too much. These good characteristics will empower him, will allow him to become more self-confident of himself. The same is true if somebody has gotten used to disciplining himself. He's very well disciplined. Or he has developed midat hatmada, which we'll talk about eventually. Hatmada or ikviyut means to be constant and to be persistent. This allows people to accomplish goals. And this, of course, allows self-confidence to grow. Now, the midah of self-confidence you will actually find in children. It's not something that comes at a later age. It is there from the early on. You can tell which baby is going to be self-confident baby. Some of them are very self-confident of themselves, self-assured. So it is there from the beginning, but at various levels. There's even called something like excessive self-confidence, when someone is so sure of himself that he's almost blind. He's so sure. That's no good. As we said before, too much of anything almost is no good. So too much self-confidence is definitely not good. But that exists. Self-confidence exists in the various levels. One of the types of self-confidence, however, that is negative, that is no good, is the one that originates from arrogance and stubbornness. You could have people who feel very sure of themselves, they're very confident because of their arrogance. There are those individuals who start off with self-confidence and later on in life lose it. And we'll talk a little bit about them too. So it was there from the very beginning, but something happened to them, someone did something to them, and they lost it. So briefly, if we were to define self-confidence, healthy self-confidence, a healthy dose of self-confidence gives one independence of thought. He's in control of his own thoughts. He's not brainwashed. He's in control of himself. As long as, of course, if he's Jewish, he realizes that as much as he's independent in thought, he's still dependent on Hashem. That is very important to remember. If you're Jewish, of course, that we depend on Hashem. We don't have free will in most areas of life, except in the areas to do the right or the wrong. Otherwise, we barely have free will. Everything is destined, or everything is predestined. In that area where we get judged, where our performance is important, is in the area of Yirat Shamayim. How God-fearing are we? How kind were we? How charitable? Did we pray? Did we give, charity? Do we do mitzvot, put on tefillin, keep Shabbat? The areas of Yirat Shamayim is where we will be judged, because we're not robots. But how much money we make, that doesn't make a difference upstairs. They don't care. Why? Because that has been predestined. We have a package deal. We're born with this package, and in this package there are the tools, which are our talents, our skills, which enable us to perform whatever it is we need to perform in our lifetime. Certain people will become carpenters, others will become musicians, others will become dentists, depending on what their mazal is. It's not because they chose, it's not because they were told to choose that career. It's all min hashamayim, it's all through their mazal. There are even people who have a very interesting mazal. They spent 8 years in college to become lawyers. It takes a long time till you pass the test. And sometimes people don't pass it the first time. The bar, they call it the bar. I don't know why they call it the bar. The bar, usually people are drinking at the bar. So I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I still have to ask them, why do they call it the bar? But anyway, a lot of people fail the bar many times until they make it. So they spend all this money. They work so hard. And guess what happens at the age of 24? Or actually not 24. If they started at 18, 26, 27, they get married. And guess what? Their future father-in-law tells them, please come help me in my company. You're going to be the new CEO one of these days, right? Well, it sounds very attractive because it's a big company and they're making a lot of money. And how much can he make as an attorney, especially starting off? He's going to be working for someone else, not for himself. So you see how the mazal worked out for him? He thought he was going in one direction, and because he got married, he went out in a completely different direction. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't prepare yourself, you shouldn't take classes and be what you want to be, but just be prepared that it may not always work out the way you want it to. The same is true with shidduchim, with marriages. People go out, they think they like each other, they think it's going to work out, but it's whatever he has in mind. If it's not meant to be, you can rest assured it won't happen. If it's meant to be and you said no, or she said no, somehow it's going to happen. Somebody's going to encourage you. Everything is in the hand of Shamayim, as long as we're not too picky, because if we're too picky, then we're interfering with Hashem's job. A person can lose an otherwise good prospect because he's been too picky, pushing off a good opportunity. He's lazy. What do you expect? That the job will come knocking at your door? Unless you have great merits, right? Or your father was a big tzaddik, the job will not come knocking on your door. You have to write a resume, you have to pick yourself up, make phone calls, look in the newspapers, and go and fetch a job. Obviously, the more merits you have, and the more bitachon in Hashem, the more faith you have in God, then things, of course, will go easier for you. But we still have to make an effort. An effort is the key over here. And the more bitachon atzmi you have in yourself, the easier the effort will come to you. The more you don't believe in yourself, you don't trust in yourself, you don't trust in Hashem, chas v'shalom, then things will be more difficult. So this is healthy bitachon. Healthy bitachon atzmi is when one, of course, depends on Hashem. He realizes that ultimately it's His word, it's His say, it's His wish. But nevertheless, I have an independent thought of my own, which is a very important idea, independent thought of my own. I will not allow others to dictate to me what they want me to think. I will think on my own. As you know, in communism, many Jews were not allowed, did not have the freedom to think what they want to think. In order to better understand the concept of bitachon, I just want to briefly go over with you another area which is similar but different, and that is the bitachon in Hashem. We're talking here about bitachon atzmi, self-confidence, but there's something called having faith or reliance in Hashem, trusting Hashem. That one you will find in many sefarim. This is the most beautiful and important midah, because there's something called emunah and there's something called bitachon. A lot of us have emunah in Hashem. What does emunah in Hashem mean? I believe God created the world and it did not come about through a big bang. Yes, it makes sense. The world is by design. I can look and I can reflect and I can come to that conclusion very easily because I'm not biased. Some people are biased and they don't want to recognize that there is a creator, because once they recognize that there is a creator, obviously it commits them to a certain lifestyle. So as long as you're not biased and you're open-minded and you're in search for the truth, you will realize with common sense that there's a creator to the world. Am Yisrael came to that conclusion by witnessing the many miracles when they left Egypt, throughout the desert, and throughout all our history. It's obvious even to the non-Jewish world, to those who are open-minded, hey, there's somebody looking out for them. Otherwise, how could they survive amongst the 70 wolves, this lonely sheep? It is only because of our shepherd. So this is emunah. That's not enough. There's something called bitachon. Bitachon b'Hashem means I trust Him blindly. What does trust mean? Differently than I believe. I believe means I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Him. I believe you. I'm not sure, but I believe you. To trust means I trust you. I know 100% that whatever you do for me is for my benefit. I know that you not only created the world, but you're still around, managing this world. Bitachon b'Hashem believes, therefore, in something called hashgacha. I know that there's divine providence. He did not bail out after he created the world. He's still around. He's managing. But wait a minute, how come there's so much evil in the world? How come those who are evil prosper and those who are righteous suffer? The famous question. Well, I trust him. He knows what he's doing because he's around. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. And who's to say that I need to have all the answers? We don't stick around here forever anyway. We don't have to figure it all out. There's too much to know. We will never know it even if we lived 1,000 years, Shlomo Melech says in Kohelet. You would never know everything anyway. There's a lot of mysteries that are beyond human comprehension. So therefore, what does Bitachon say? I trust him. I trust him that he loves me. He told me so, that we are his children. He performed and proved himself in the past. Therefore, I trust that what he promises in the future will also come true. What did he promise in the future? There will be Techiyat HaMetim. Techiyat HaMetim, the dead will rise. You mean they're not gone forever? No, they're not gone forever. Just we're not used to it. We're used to planting a seed of onion or whatever on the ground and seeing a new onion come out, a new tree come out, avocado tree, mango tree, whatever. That we're used to seeing, but we're not used to seeing human beings coming out of the ground. Because we don't see it, so we don't think of it as a possibility. But bitachon in Hashem says, and emunah and bitachon in Hashem in this case is both. We believe that one day, very soon actually, there will be Techiyat HaMetim. You will see all those who have passed away, all those who were eaten by sharks, all those who were cremated in Auschwitz. They're not gone forever because the essence of the human being is a soul. This is just a suit we wear, this body of flesh and bones and sinews and whatever, right? This disintegrates, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu can make very easily a new body in the same way he made it the first time around. Well, after all, didn't he make it the first time around? He succeeded the first time, then the next time he will also say, what's the big deal for him to do it? We're just not used to. So we need emunah and bitachon b'Hashem to trust him that this in fact will happen. Bitachon is not something so easy because a lot of people have a hard time when it comes to parnasah. Parnasah, they're struggling, they're not making it. Where is he? Where's my mazal? What's going on? Is he around? Does he pay attention? Does he listen to my prayers? And by the way, why does he want us to pray? Because he wants us to remember that we depend on him, we rely on him, we need him. If we wouldn't pray, we would think everything depends on us. He doesn't get involved, but he's very involved in our life, whether it's in curing those who are sick, whether it's in providing a livelihood, sustenance, whether it's in finding our soulmate. He's the one that gets directly involved in these things. So he wants us to turn to him, to give us the proper direction, that we make sure that we don't make any mistakes. We need to turn to him. And the stronger one has bitachon in Hashem, the easier it will be for him to also have bitachon atzmi. In other words, for one to be self-confident and sure that what he's doing is the right thing and not have any worries or doubts, it will help him greatly if he has the other kind of bitachon. Bitachon Hashem. After all, he's the boss. He wants what's good for me. He won't allow me to make a mistake so easily if I'm so innocent. Obviously, if one intentionally wants to do something wrong, that's a sin, a transgression, then he won't necessarily stop you. As the rabbis tell us, "Abali tameh potchim lo." One who wants to become unclean, impure, they'll open up the door for him. "Abali taher mesayeino min hashemayim." If you want to be clean and pure, you'll get divine assistance. For becoming pure and clean and righteous, you actually get divine assistance. If you want to be a bal teshuvah, you want to repent, you want to do things right, you want to start all over again, Hashem will say, yes, go ahead and make a U-turn, and I'll allow you. You won't get a ticket for that, right? You're allowed to make a U-turn in Hashem's world. But if you want to become unclean, Khalila, he won't help you, but he'll leave the door open. He won't stop you. Most of the time, unless a person has great merits, Hashem will not stop him from committing a wrong. That's what the free will is. Bitachon b'Hashem, therefore, is a beautiful midah, very important midah. We have a separate lecture just about that. How in many areas of our life, it helps us greatly. Nobody can take away your livelihood by opening up a competing store on the other side of the street. It's impossible. Whatever is meant to you from Rosh Hashanah to get, every penny you will get. He cannot take it away from you. Bitachon b'Hashem also says that if you don't work on Shabbat, you're not going to lose a penny, even though that's according to some their best day. They don't realize that all the profit they made on Shabbat will be erased through several root canals a transmission that went kaput, and some other problem in the home, perhaps even a lawsuit from the neighbor, all kinds of ways that all the money will disappear. Because he's mashgiach. He's not only the creator of the world, he's around, he's involved, and especially in the Jew's life, he's very, very involved. The more bitachon b'Hashem I have, the better I will understand this. The less fears and worries and anxiety I will have. It will be easier for me, therefore, to perform, to live my life accordingly, with more bitachon atzmi, with more of self-confidence. This bitachon in Hashem, by the way, will also help neutralize many of the weaknesses one may have. Somebody that really worked on, by the way, you're not born with bitachon Hashem. If you worked on developing bitachon Hashem, you studied all about it. Once we acquire this midah, it neutralizes. This midah neutralizes all kinds of weaknesses. It will neutralize, for example, kas, anger. Why he has bitachon Hashem? Why should he get angry? After all, the guy who insulted him, it was meant for him to hear that insult. Now that guy's going to get punished for insulting, for hitting, for spitting, for insulting. That guy's going to get punished for it. He has free will. But you who are the victim, if you got hurt by an insult, by whatever it is, it was meant to be. It's a kapara, it's an atonement. It takes bitachon Hashem to understand that. And once you really clearly understand that, you don't fight back. What are you fighting back for? This is good. Now don't give him the other cheek, right? No, we don't do that. But you have to know how to deal with it, how to react. The reaction will be based on how much emunah and bitachon we have. So bitachon Hashem neutralizes many weaknesses, helps us also with bitachon atzmi, with having the proper self-confidence that we need to have. And another important detail to keep in mind is that bitachon atzmi has nothing to do with talent. There are a lot of people who are very talented from birth, but they still don't have bitachon. They don't have self-confidence. What a shame. They're very talented, but they don't have self-confidence. So the two are not necessarily connected. If we were to define bitachon atzmi succinctly, in other words, very, very briefly, other than independent thought, one could also add that it has to do with convincing oneself that one is capable of doing whatever he is asked to do. So bitachon atzmi has a little bit to do to convincing yourself. In other words, if you can convince yourself, if you are at ease, if you are calm about yourself and you know yourself, your abilities, there's no reason to have an anxiety attack or to have any doubts or hesitations. It should be normal, it should be automatic. So bitachon atzmi, self-confidence, does involve, to an extent, convincing oneself of one's ability. Now, we don't know, we will never know our true abilities. So what do? We have to try our best. We have to try our maximum, because one does not know how much he can accomplish in life. He may accomplish a tremendous amount. I mean, you would take anybody who was a great inventor, discovered things, had he not put himself to work on it, had he not tried to figure it out, to think about it, he would never have succeeded. We have to do our best. We have no idea of what we can accomplish until we try. In order to stimulate this ability in one, the rabbis gave us one idea. I mean, there are other ideas, but one major idea. One should always ask himself, which, by the way, asks himself means also to aspire. One should always aspire and ask himself, when will my deeds resemble or come close to the deeds of my forefathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov? When will I ever be like them? Generations that were before us were great people. Great people, they had Ruach HaKodesh, many of them were very big tzaddikim. Is it possible for me to ever come close to what they were? Yes, it is. The Rambam says very clearly, everybody can be almost like Moshe Rabbeinu. I say almost because you can't be on the level of his prophecy, but you can be on his level of knowledge. You can be on his level of humbleness, of his deeds. He's a human being like anybody else. So Rambam says, don't think you can't be like him. You can be like him. If you strive, if you do everything right, you can be a great man. So the rabbis, in order to stimulate that, tell us to always strive, to aspire, to be as close as possible, to get as close as possible to the ways of our forefathers. One of the midot that can help us achieve that, one of the midot that can help us, can lead us in that direction is midat simcha, which we spoke about already before. Simcha, or happiness, is one of the most important midot that the Torah speaks about clearly. How important it is for us to have simcha, happiness in our conduct, in our service of Hashem. Otherwise, it's almost worthless. To do things as a routine, to do things just out of habit, and not to do it for the real sake, for the real purpose. It's lacking so much. The only way we can really do something completely with devotion is if you do it happily. I mean, imagine your wife, your spouse. You buy her something, but you don't really mean it. You just want to make her happy, right? I mean, she should just be quiet and leave you alone. That's not. You should really want to do it. I remember when I got married, they told me, listen, when you are in that yichud room, you know what a yichud room is? Ashkenazim, especially after the chuppah, they go into a room for a few minutes. They break their fast if they were fasting on that day. And they talk privately after the chuppah. That yichud room, because it's closed, and somehow consummates the marriage. Not just the chuppah, not just the ring, but the yichud. For a few minutes. So I'm told, you know what, you got to give your wife a gift in the yichud room. I said, whoever said that? Who made up that custom? I just gave her a ring under the chuppah. I gave her a ring when we got engaged. I just gave her this. Well, what are you telling me, new customs? It must be a Persian custom, no?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, whoever came up with that custom. So they said, well, why don't you give it anyway? I said, you know why? Because I want to give a gift when I feel like giving it, when it really means something to me, when I really care. When I'm just excited to give it. I don't want to do something artificial because I was told to do it. You get the point? A gift is something special. You should want to give it with your whole heart. Not because you were being told. Okay, now you give a gift. Now you give that. Now you write a birthday card. I mean, come on. It should come from you. Otherwise it becomes artificial. It's not the same. It has no depth and it doesn't have the same meaning. The reason I mentioned this to you is because one of the issues that really destroys or weakens bitachon is when one's behavior is adapted or controlled by what other people think and say. Did everybody get that? When one's behavior is adapted or controlled by what other people do and say. I like to say a famous joke. The story, it may be true. There was once a Yemenite couple that just recently got married. Happy, young Yemenite couple. So they're going home from the chuppah. They have a donkey. There was no cars back then. There was no limousine. So you traveled by donkey. So the man is riding on the donkey, the groom, and the kalai is walking behind him. So as they're going on their way home, they hear people commenting. What were people commenting? Look at this guy. He has no pity on his wife. Right after the chuppah, he's already bossing her around, going on the donkey himself and having her go by foot. So he hears the comments and she hears the comments and he tells his kalai, you know what, they have a point. You ride on the donkey and I'll walk behind. Okay. So she rides on the donkey. He walks behind. All of a sudden, they hear comments, again coming from the side. Look at this, from the very first day, he lets his wife be on top. What a mistake. So he says, you know what? They got a point too. So what do? They both ride the donkey. They both start riding the donkey, and after a while they hear comments again. Look, these guys, they have no pity on the donkey. Such cruel people. Both riding on a donkey, how much, a donkey's for one person. So the couple says, you know what, these guys also have a point. What do? They put the donkey on their back. And they started carrying the donkey. As they're going and walking down the road, they hear some more people coming. Look, 3 donkeys here. So, if you're always going to pay attention to what people say, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to accomplish anything. You're always going to have different opinions. And that is why I like the following saying. Always be yourself. Always be yourself, because the people that mind don't matter. And the people that matter don't mind. Did you get that?
Okay.
The people that mind how you behave, they don't matter anyway. And the people that really matter to you, they won't mind. Right?
That's true.
So, what do you care what people say? So therefore, one of the indicators, one of the best indicators that one does have a certain degree of self-confidence is when he's able to do things without waiting for people's approval. Okay? One of the indicators that a person already has some degree of self-confidence is that he can actually do things without waiting for people's approval. Or you have another situation. Somebody began to do something, and all of a sudden he hears criticism or making fun of him. And he takes it lightly. He ignores it. Ignoring the insults, ignoring the ridicule, ignoring the criticism, unless it's constructive, of course, shows self-confidence. People who are doing teshuvah, Baruch Hashem in Israel, a lot of people coming back to the roots, they face a lot of criticism. They face ridicule from their own parents and family members and definitely friends. A lot of them face ridicule, and that makes it very tough for them to do proper teshuvah. Those who are strong and have some degree of self-confidence, and of course they are convinced that what they're doing is the right thing, you need to be convinced. Remember we spoke about it before, you need to be convinced of what you're doing. If you have doubts about what you're doing, that's something else. If you're convinced of what you're doing and you have some degree of self-confidence, you'll be able to ignore the criticism and the ridicule. Those who can't take the pressure, obviously they're lacking a healthy dose of self-confidence. And it would be in their best interest to strengthen themselves in that area, otherwise they're not going to be able to accomplish a lot. Another individual, another indicator could be somebody who's making great efforts to try to do something, whatever it is that he's doing, and he failed. He made many mistakes. He doesn't cool off. He doesn't give up hope. He says, okay, made a mistake, try it over again, try it again, get some help, seek advice. You don't lose hope, even though you failed. That shows that you have some confidence. These are all somewhat indicators that this individual has some confidence. Actually, there's a saying, one of the best ways to develop or to gain self-confidence is to do what you're afraid to do. Dafka, what you're afraid to do it, of course, if it's something that is sound, in order to be able to grow in self-confidence. It is very advisable, for a Jew especially, that whatever he does, he should do l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Because anytime a person does something for the sake of heaven, he's blessed. And we need all the blessings we can get. What is a blessing? It's an extra boost. It's a helping hand from shamayim to be able to do even that which is difficult. Right? We should do everything in our life l'shem shamayim, even going to sleep l'shem shamayim. How do we do that? L'shem shamayim, going to sleep? Yes, we want to get rest so we can rise early, so that we can serve Hashem, so that we can pray, so that we can function. So we're sleeping not because of selfish reasons. We're sleeping because, l'shem shamayim. We're eating, so we should be healthy to do things for Hashem, to do the mitzvot. Anything that one does l'shem shamayim has a greater chance of success. He will receive assistance from above, a helping hand. So it's always a good idea that whatever one does in life, his parnasah, whatever it is that he's doing, even if he's building a new home, he's remodeling, he should say, I'm building this home for Hashem, that it should be a place where I can have guests, where the Shekhinah can reside. Not just four walls and drywall and just fancy schmancy mansion, right? I'm doing this for the sake of Hashem. He will have more beracha. The inspectors won't give him a hard time. I don't guarantee that, of course, but because it all depends. It all depends, on the facts. But you have a better chance if you're doing it Hashem Shamayim, that you will have more beracha. Okay, now that we mentioned things L'Shem Shamayim, that means we're doing it for Hashem. You may have some people whose attitude may be, let Hashem take care of it. I'm just going to do a little bit. Don't wait for Hashem to do things. even though it's true that we do some effort and Hashem helps the rest, you can't wait for things to work out by themselves. By themselves, for sure not. Rabbis remind us in Pirkei Avot with the following cryptic words. They're cryptic because they're a little bit different than the typical. Im en ani li, mili. Have you ever heard those words? If I don't take care of myself, who's going to take care of me? If I don't do for myself, who can I expect that will give it the push? If you know something is right, push yourself, because don't expect somebody else will push you necessarily. Unless, of course, you're very lucky and you have such a great eshet hayil for a wife, she may push you. Just don't let her push you around too much, But as long as it's for something good, then you're lucky. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has this wife or a husband, the other way around, that will actually be there to elevate you, to push you, to encourage you, to calm you down. It's a beautiful dream, but it's a rarity. It's called Eshet Hayil Mi Yimtza. Shlomo Melech speaks about it at the very end of his book Mishlei. So you got to do for yourself as much as you can, and hopefully Hashem will send you the right people to help you here and there for what you need. Hashem mezavek zivugim, not only soulmates, not only in marriage, but also shidduchim in partners, shidduchim at work, co-workers, people that can help you with a plan or a project. He'll just bring the people together for you. You just demonstrate that you're sincere, that you really want to get it done, and B'ezrat Hashem, you will see tremendous hashgacha prati, tremendous divine assistance, because you're doing it for a good cause. But remember, imena nili mili, if you don't do yourself, don't expect anybody else to do it for you. Don't wait for miracles. Don't rely on miracles. You got to act naturally, normally, al pi derech hateva, by doing things normal. Don't take a chance, don't take a risk. If, of course, Hashem wants to make you a miracle, He will make the miracle, but don't rely on it. Don't expect things to happen by themselves. So all of this is to push us to have a degree of bitachon atzmi. You can do it. You don't even know that you can do it. I'm letting you know that you can. Push yourself as much as you can, and you'll see. If it's meant to be, then it will succeed. If it's not meant to be, then don't push too hard. That's, by the way, another idea that the rabbis tell us. Anytime something is not meant to be, don't push too hard. It's a waste of time, money, and effort. You go for an interview, you got all ready and all excited, and he doesn't want you. And you can't understand it. You can't figure out. You start blaming anti-Semitism. You start blaming Ain Hara. You start blaming all kinds of things. What are you blaming things? HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want you to get this job. It's very simple. But in Israel, they believe in something called protectia. No, I have to get protectia. I have to call someone to do me a favor. Don't push yourself too hard. If it's not meant for you, this is not for you. Don't try to bribe yourself through the system. That's pushing it too hard. It's not going to work out. Okay, so now that we more or less covered an overview of this midah, of this very special, important midah called bitachon atzmi, or self-confidence, as always we do with the midot, towards the end I try to give some tips. What can one do to further develop his bitachon atzmi, his self-confidence? As we said in the very beginning, some people have more, some people have less. Some people have almost none, but I doubt it. Most people have a little bit. One midah that is very helpful in general with insecurities, remember we said before there are certain midot that extinguish or limit the desire to progress, to grow. Insecurities, there are all kinds of phobias, insecurities, whatever you want to call them. One of the midot that works well with insecurities is called istapkut. And we covered that a little bit when we talked about simcha. We spoke about asameach bechilko. And in English that would be contentment. Sameach means happy, but sameach bechilko, happy with your lot, is contentment. Contentment means to be satisfied with whatever Hashem gave you and not to desire more and more and more and more. Oh. But if somebody is jealous, he will never be content. You see how contentment will be far removed from somebody who's jealous. Oh, he's got himself a new car, I want a new car. He's not going to be happy with the car that he has, right? He has a house, but the guy just built a bigger house. And you know where this is a problem? It causes peer pressure in weddings. I just came back from New York, and I was involved, I participated in a wedding, Sheva Brachot, and it was a wedding, and it were Sheva Brachot that were following a certain takana, that particular community instituted a takana. A takana is a ruling that everybody has to have the same menu, a certain kind of menu. I mean, you probably have a couple of choices. It has to be within this price range. You can't bring your own food, your own liquor. You have to just buy and pay whatever they give you. And in this way, no one can outdo the other. Fancier, I want this, and I want a Viennese table, and I want a bar, and I want this. No. You want to get married in this hall? You want to have a Sheva Brachot at this place? You have to follow the takana of this place. Great. Some people have a problem. The peer pressure of what others, are doing. They have to outdo them, or even they're not going to outdo them, just to keep up with them. Let's say you can't afford it. Well, you're going to go into debt. Some people feel they have to go into debt to keep up with their friends, with their colleagues, with society. What a shame. What a lack of self-confidence. What a lack of pride in who you are. You're different than them. Why should you try to come close to being like them? You are who you are. No, they're ashamed. What are people going to say? Who cares what they're going to say? Everybody's concerned now about what the world is saying about Israel. In a couple of days, they're going to forget about it. In a couple of days, we're going to have the Mundial, the soccer. And everybody's going to be talking about soccer and not about Israel. Baruch Hashem. Right? Who cares? Just forget about it. Just, before you know it, it's going to be gone. This too shall pass. So people, for one day, for one meal, that's all a wedding is, right? It's one meal usually, one big meal. They go out of their way and become so anxious and so fearful and go into debt to feed all these people who are not going to see you anyway for the rest of the year, most of the time. You have nothing to do with them. No, they're part of the community. Who cares if they're part of the community? What connection do you have? They're not even your relatives. You don't owe them this thing. It's a lack of self-confidence. It's a lack of course, other things as well. It's a lack of having the right hashkafa, the right perspective in life. Don't be too much of a spender. We're going to speak about that eventually too. Being economical and not being a bazbezan, one who spends too much. Those areas also need control. So here we have a midah called istapkut hanefesh, contentment, that can actually help with insecurities. And when we can properly deal with insecurities through this midah, then of course bitachon atzmi will come about. It surfaces. It's there. Remember we said before in the very beginning, it's there. The neshama wants to lead us in the right way. The bitachon atzmi there is there. Just there are certain things that are silencing it. Certain insecurities perhaps. How do we deal with the insecurities and drive them away so we can have the bitachon atzmi? Contentment. This is one midah, which we spoke about separately, but can help us indirectly bring out the bitachon atzmi that's there. Be content with whatever you have. This is what Hashem wants you to have. If you don't have it, it's because He didn't want you to have it. If you still insist on having it, it may destroy your life. You know how many people's lives were destroyed because they won the lottery? Yeah. They got divorced, they became unhappy, they got all worried what to do with the money. They were much happier before they got all this money. If Hashem wanted you to have it, He would give it to you if it was necessary for you. If He didn't, there's a good reason for it. What do we need for that? Bitachon b'Hashem, of course. And a form of bitachon b'Hashem is to be content with whatever you have. Another idea that can help us further strengthen the bitachon atzmi is to easily admit our mistakes. We make mistakes, so what? It's human. And not only admit the mistakes, but if there was a mistake committed, then hafakat lekachim, as we call it in Hebrew, derive the necessary conclusions from this mistake. Learn from them. Learn the lessons. If we want to strengthen our bitachon atzmi, we shouldn't be afraid, we shouldn't be ashamed of making a mistake. And on the contrary, a mistake is an opportunity to learn something. You know what happens when a plane crashes? Anybody here know what's the first thing that happens after? Well, after they try to recover to see if anybody's alive. What happens?
The black box.
They try to look for the black boxes, of course. Plus,
They stupid thing.
which people come and investigate? There's, yeah. Huh? The FDA, right? They always go to every crash site, especially major plane, but I think even for small planes. They want to see what happened, because maybe they can learn from this to make better planes. After all, they don't know everything. All the planes that Baruch Hashem we have today, the newer models, are safer. Why are they safer? Because they've learned from previous accidents. You know, what material to use, how to build the plane, where the wings, the flaps, you know, all the issues that have to go into the aerodynamics of the plane to make it flyable under all kinds of pressures. So, a mistake is an opportunity to learn from. Don't feel bad about it. The one who, of course, is going to really be not very successful in life is one that is called Mechaseh Pesha'av. Mechaseh Pesha'av lo yatzliach. One who covers his mistakes will not be successful. That pasuk was said in regards to those people who don't confess their sins. They hide, they ignore, they look away. Mechaseh Pesha'av, you did a wrong to an individual, you did a wrong against Hashem. Confess. Hashem says, say it, verbalize it, feel remorseful about it, and begin to take action to change it in the future. Or be careful not to repeat the same mistake. Either way, commit yourself to making a change. One who does not go through that process of teshuvah, in coming to terms with his past, then it's going to haunt him. It's going to continue to haunt him. You have to break away from the past. How do you break away from the past? Hashem says, teshuvah, it means to not only return to me, it means to break away from the past. I don't want you to go back. It requires several things. It requires vidui, charata, ve'kabbalah le'atid. Vidui is confession. Charata is to be remorseful or regretful. And kabbalah le'atid means a commitment in the future not to repeat the mistake, if it was something negative, or if it's something positive, to begin to do whatever it is that you were not doing. Why all three? Because one is machshava, the other is dibur, the other one is maaseh. Machshava is the thoughts. The thoughts have to be detached from the past. What influences or what detaches my thought from the past? Regret, remorse. I feel bad about it. I'm pained by it. It hurts me. I realize how terrible it is. That's machshava. Dibur is I take it one step higher and I elevate my machshava to the speech by verbalizing, by communicating it. That makes it even stronger now. And now I'm more firm about it, stronger. And then I make a commitment, physical commitment, I make a promise, and hopefully that will give me the strength to do the right thing in the future. So if you don't do all these three, if you just bring an animal like korban, you pay a small fine, a penalty, that's not enough. It has to be real, it has to be sincere, otherwise you're not detaching yourself. So mechaseh pesha'av lo yatzliach. One who covers up his mistakes in life, doesn't tell his wife he's sorry, doesn't tell his friend, I'm sorry I hurt you, or doesn't tell Hashem, I'm sorry. He covers it up, he won't succeed. It will always be there, he's not detached from it. It can repeat itself very easily. It will be there. Unless you learn the lessons. So a mistake is not the end of the world. A mistake is an opportunity to learn from, as long as we're willing to admit it. Another idea that is very, very special, valuable, is to set goals. We've spoken about it perhaps more than once. Setting goals is something very helpful for many people in various situations regarding various weaknesses that they may have. Setting a goal can help someone discipline himself, organize himself, become more serious in life. It can help him with his laziness. It can help one in many, many ways. So setting goals, realistic goals, can help one with self-confidence, because if you actually achieve that goal, every achievement is an incredible, great feeling. It's not just the setting the goal, which is a good discipline, it's the accomplishment. If you actually set the goal, made the plan, and you actually accomplished it, you know what a sipuk that gives you? You know what a sense of satisfaction that gives you? What better tool here than to strengthen this self-confidence, right? We want to motivate this individual to strengthen his self-confidence, the bitachon atzmi, allow him to set the goal, and if he succeeds in achieving the goal, he will be one step closer to strengthening his self-confidence. One thing that you should not be afraid of is making silly mistakes. We spoke about mistakes. There's something called in Hebrew fadihot. If anybody knows Hebrew slang, only maybe one or two people, three people maybe know this word. It's a very silly, or as they would call it in English, it's such a stupid mistake that people are so ashamed and embarrassed of it. Don't be afraid of it. Laugh at your own mistakes if necessary. Laugh at them. Laugh at them. The laughter of the mistake will help you with your self-confidence. Another idea that the rabbis tell us is tafasta merubelo tafasta. Here you have a Baal Teshuvah who wants to do everything right. He came to the conclusion that this is the truth. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. If you embark on too many things, you will end up holding on to very few things, if anything. Be very careful when you do embark on a new direction, when you want to do teshuvah and you want to change your lifestyle. Start shweya shweya, as we say in Arabic, little by little. Don't rush. Because little by little you will be able to strengthen yourself and you'll be able to accomplish a lot more. You can't accomplish a lot in a short time. It's impossible. So it's a very good piece of advice is whenever you're starting out, you're changing your lifestyle, you're correcting your past, do a small detail at a time until you feel more assured of yourself that you can go to the next step. Another idea that actually could help people who are very weak in self-confidence is to smile. This one I saw brought down by a professional, an expert who speaks about how to motivate people to believe more in themselves. Smile. Smile to everyone. Make others happy. Help them out if they need your help. Somehow the smile, the attitude that one has in this commingling with other people, helping them out, getting involved in their life, builds up a little bit of self-confidence. Because what is a smile? A smile is a certain happiness, a certain contentment. Even though you're forcing it, it basically says, I'm not afraid. It basically says, I'm happy. Even though it's artificial, you're forcing it, believe it or not, before you know it, it will be natural. So that's a very nice idea. I think it does help. To smile, to make others happy, to help others will eventually help you too. Let's say somebody needs self-confidence because he needs to perform, whether it's in the gym, in the Olympics, or whatever, or he needs to give a speech, he needs to prepare something, it's going to be in public, and he's lacking self-confidence. What very much will help him is to be totally familiar with the information that he's doing. Obviously, if it requires physical effort, to do a lot of practice. The more knowledge you gain, and the more you're familiar with all that, the more self-assured you will be. So if it involves information, make sure you cover the information very well. Make sure that you know it well, so that will give you the greatest self-confidence to deliver it. What about if you're okay, you have self-confidence, but you're a teacher or you want to instill self-confidence in other people? What's the quickest or best way to instill self-confidence in others? Anybody know?
Put them down.
What? One of the quickest, well, it's not quick, it's not a quick and dirty thing. One of the best tools to instill self-confidence in other, whether you're a teacher or a friend or parent, is to praise, to pick out the good qualities of them, point them out and say, but look, you have this quality, look how great you are in this area. Praise the good in people, and everybody has some good. If you have an individual like that, a friend like that, a child like that, anybody, if you have somebody like that in your life, you may also suggest to them to volunteer. When people volunteer and do, as I said before, help others, the work of a volunteer also builds up self-confidence in people. It's also a very good exercise, a very good tool to instill in others self-confidence. Another one perhaps could also be exercise. Sometimes people are weak because they haven't exercised. They don't feel good about themselves. They've gained weight perhaps. There's all kinds of issues that can, we said before, diminish or extinguish or silence that self-confidence. Exercise may also help a little bit. These are all small tools if we want to instill in others this particular midah. Now, the following is advice for parents with children. this is extremely important because in the very beginning of the lecture, I pointed out that we all have the bitachon atzmi, the self-confidence ingrained in our neshama, but there's some things or some people that silence it. Parents are very much responsible for their children, right? They have to be very careful not to be overcritical of a child's mistakes or weaknesses. They have to point out the good things. If you want to criticize, make sure that you do it constructive. Make sure that you also point out the positive. For a child, self-confidence to grow in a healthy way, he always has to know that his parents love him and care about him. He has to know that. He has to be convinced of that. In other words, they have to love him despite his weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. So unconditional love. Exactly. Very good. So if a child knows that, my parents love me with all my weaknesses, that's so special. That will help him, will at least allow him to grow and allow him to mature. Just like to end with another point or two, that the more a person works on himself to develop his self-confidence, he will be more proud of himself, more assured of himself, more disciplined. He will be able to deal better, more aptly with criticism. People will criticize him, okay, he'll take it more easily. He'll be able to be more assertive in his ways. He will have more desire to do things. He will become more emotionally mature. Developing self-confidence will help one in many, many areas. But remember, I highly advise, a Jew especially, that this self-confidence should come together with bitachon in Hashem. We're talking about bitachon atzmi here, but bitachon atzmi, self-confidence, can gain tremendously, directly and indirectly, from bitachon in Hashem, having confidence in Hashem. That Hashem has given me tremendous potential. I just have to use it. And last but not least, I think it's a saying, and the saying goes, be careful and don't be your worst enemy. If anything, be your best friend. A lot of people, in the way they act, in the way they do things, end up being their own worst enemy. They're full of potential. They don't realize how great they can be. But because of other things they do wrong, they turn out, they are themselves their worst enemy. So if anything, we need to have a little bit of clarity. And that clarity, of course, we gain from our emunah in Hashem and our bitachon in Hashem. The clarity of life. What is the purpose of life? And what our mission is in life as Jews. And the more knowledgeable we become, the more clarity we gain, the clearer things become, the more we will realize that there's so much vanities in this world, there's so much shtuyot and nonsense. Why do I focus on those things? I really have to focus on the more important things in life. And in this way, people start changing their priorities, prioritizing their life, their time, their attention, their efforts. They become healthier not only in mind, but in spirit. And in this way, they are becoming their own best friend. So that is what I want to wish all of you, that we should all become our best friend. Thank you.
What's the name of the lecture?